There is mold in our washer.
Losing their nose stick, mainly in our food, and we were consuming it. Okay, so a few months back, I started working in a home office almost exclusively. That space was in the basement. I noticed a clear difference when I spent a day down there in terms of how quickly my energy levels would totally disappear. I felt like the lighting was bad. There was a lot of dust because the basement was unfinished and the air quality was poor. I was just surrounded by a ton of electronics. So I hired a home health auditor to come in and give me an opinion about what I could do to improve the healthiness of my home. Okay, so whether we want to admit it or not, the information being sent through the air by your Wi-Fi router isn't just happening magically, and there's some low-level radiation going on anytime that this thing is running. So what are we gonna do about that? Shut off our Wi-Fi? Probably not, but we can limit our exposure with a timer. We normally go to sleep around 9:30, 10 o'clock and wake up somewhere between, let's just call it 5 and 6, or at least that's the earliest we're gonna wanna be using the internet. So we have installed a timer that automatically shuts off our Wi-Fi router at those times and turns it back on so that we don't have to remember to manually try and shut it off every night. Also, speaking of radiation, I learned that these guys right here give off a ton of it. Now, he said that this particular microwave is a lot more well insulated than he normally sees, but there's still leakage around the door. And when you're running the microwave, this thing broadcasts a ton of microwave signals outside of its physical box. So the lessons were, stand as far away from it as possible when you're running it. Don't stand directly in front of it. Definitely don't let your kids stare at it and watch the food spin around while it's cooking. There is microwaves getting out of there, and if it can cook your food, it can probably do something pretty bad to your brain and all of your organs. Try not to use this anytime you don't have to. The stove is way less convenient, but it does work. Okay, speaking of the stovetop, we've got a gas range, and it was pointed out to us that our hood fan not only doesn't cover the entire range, so there's always some exhaust gas getting out into our house, but also we didn't realize that when we run our oven, which is also run off gas, the exhaust comes out into the house, and we weren't always running the fan when we were running the oven. So if you've got a gas range and oven, make sure you're running that fan, or else you and your family are breathing in toxic air. Also, on the note of cooking, we got the memo that our beloved Kirkland nose stick pans were slowly losing their nose stick, mainly in our food, and we were consuming it. So we made the jump onto cast iron. While we're on the topic of chemicals, we got the memo that just about everything that we use to make our air artificially smell good, and most of the cleaners that we would have owned were really not that great for you to breathe in, not that good for your kids to crawl around on. And so we have switched to pretty much exclusively using a mixture of water, vinegar, a little bit of dish soap. Okay guys, speaking of cleaning, we got warned off of these things and just about every other kind of standard laundry product that are full of chemicals, and they're sticking around in your clothes after they're out of the dryer, and they're on your skin, and your kids are breathing them in. That also brings me to one more point in the laundry room, which is that this door typically gets closed after the laundry's done, and then it gets left that way. And we found out that
There is mold in our washer, and we're having a hard time getting rid of this, to be honest with you. But the way that the home health auditor went straight to this, I know that he has seen this on a ton of places. So we have done our best to clean this up. This is all stained now, and this door always stays open. When you do your laundry and it's all done, you've taken it out, leave the door open. Don't close it.
Okay, and you can't talk about home health without talking about your bedroom, because we spend an inordinate amount of our lives in this room. So if you're gonna attack any room at all, it should be this one. I was particularly concerned about EMFs, that's electromagnetic fields, after noticing how much spending time in the home office around all these electronics really seemed to zap my energy. And our home health auditor made a point of telling us to remove any unnecessary electronics from these rooms, because even when they're not in use, the cord itself is actually producing an electromagnetic field from the current running through it. Now, if you do have to have any electronics at all to avoid the exposure to quote unquote dirty electricity surges, the best thing to do is involve some kind of capacitor. Now, I was going to go out and spend a bunch of money on Greenwave or Stetzer filters, but as it turns out, a power bar with a proper capacitor in it can do just about the same thing. So remove all the electronics from your bedroom that you don't need, shut everything off at night, don't have anything unnecessarily plugged in, and include power bars when you can to limit surges of dirty electricity. And also, get rid of this thing. This goes on airplane mode and it goes a room away at night. So you're one, not thinking about it, and two, it's not broadcasting signals while you're sleeping. Okay, so these tips are going to vary a lot depending on whether you're in a new build or an older home and what part of the world you live in. But I think in general, those ones are the ones that anybody could take home. There was an honorable mention about the garage and how most garages, in our situation especially, is positively pressurized because of the way that the prevailing wind is hitting it. So anytime that we go to open our garage door, we're likely flooding the house with any of the air from the garage, which is normally full of car exhaust, lawnmower exhaust, solvents that are sitting on shelves, and jerry cans. So you want to try and minimize the entrance and exit through your garage any chance you can, because you're bringing a bunch of bad air into your house. If this interested you at all, I'm going to continue learning about this subject myself and passing on that information to you guys here. So feel free to subscribe if you want to catch more videos like this.